The treasure. A king in one country had a special castle, and when he overheard that there were some threats from other nations to attack them, he said to his workers, "I'm leaving the country for some time, but I need you to build a strong fortress to protect this country and build it around the castle, because if they attack, they will attack the castle first." He says, "Now I need you to use the finest materials to build this fortress." And he left the country. Upon his return, he discovered that they had done just as he suggested. The fortress was built with the finest of materials. He celebrated the fortress. But then when he entered the other side of the fortress, going back into the country, he was puzzled because he couldn't find the castle. He asked the workers, "Where's the castle? What has happened?" And they said, "Well, King, you said use the finest materials." And so we tore down the castle to build up the fortress. Many of us thought that political power was the treasure. And now we're discovering everyone our color ain't our kind. Money is a good tool, but it's not the treasure. Actually, what we call money is really a currency. And a currency has to move or it dies, it loses value. And so if you're saving money, trying to get all you can and then can all you get, you're really losing money, because it's a currency. It needs to keep moving. Education is a good tool, but it's not the treasure. Most of us have been trained and not educated in the first place. The word educate comes from the Latin word educare, which means to bring up out of oneself. A healthy education enhances self-understanding. I've got 2 pit bulls, and I train them, but I don't educate them. I train them to sit at command. I train them to lay down at command. I train them to heel at command. Not because it's in the dog's nature to do this, but I train them for my pleasure. Most of us have been trained consumers in a capitalistic society. And so we never really reach the fullness of our potential, because we skip by education and allow a system to train us. Relationships are good tools, but they're not the treasure. Many of them were joined by the justice of the peace, but function as if they were joined by the Secretary of War. It moves from matrimony to acrimony. It's a good tool, but it's not the treasure. So what is this treasure? What is this valuable that's worth one committing their life to? Following Christ is not a hobby or a pastime. It's a lifetime commitment. The German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer says, when Christ calls a man, he calls them and bids them, "Come die with me." And so following Christ is understanding that at the heart of our faith is a cross. And if we're not willing to bear a cross, we're not willing to follow Jesus Christ. So we have this treasure. What is the composition of this treasure? Well, it is the illumination of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Not just the gospel, but the illumination of that gospel. Verse 2, Paul says, the manifestation of the truth. Verse 3, he says, if it is veiled, it's veiled to those who are perishing. Verse 4, he says, the light of the glory of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Verse 6, He says, it is the God who commanded light to shine out of darkness, that gives the light of the knowledge of the glory of God. The treasure is not just the Via Dolorosa, which is the Latin phrase, the way of sorrows. It's not just the birth, life, death, burial of Jesus, but it is the illumination of that message. So that we can now, those of us who've been called out of darkness, we can now see the image of Jesus Christ in the face of the glory of God.